And what they did was they shot me against a green screen and shrunk me down to about this big in the episode.
I think the gremlins were only going to be maybe 6 inches or a foot tall. Once we started shooting the background plates, we then needed to shoot Todd in the appropriate way with the right lens and from the right angles and everything, so that when we shrunk his image down, it would actually fit within the frame and it would make it feel like he really was that size in that shot.
I had to play both gremlins, and they relatively looked the same, but they would change the lenses that I was wearing from black lenses to yellow kind of cat eye looking lenses, and then they would change out the wardrobe. And at one point in time, they had me hanging from a harness to make it look like I was pushing a box over and I was in between 2 boxes. So they had me on a harness with 2 green screen boxes, got the motion, and then when they shrunk me down, they took the real boxes and put them in there and made it look like I was knocking them over.
Watch out!
Anytime you're working with wires and stuff, you're always having the issues of trying to allow the actor to still move, to be able to twist and turn or whatever it is going to do, and not pinch, not rub against it, and it's tough.
They had me walking on a treadmill to make it look like I was walking across the set, and then I had to, while the treadmill was going, I had to jump in the air and actually flip around to the other side and walk backwards. I wasn't quite sure if I could do it, but luckily we did it and got it on the first take. And that was actually a lot of fun. As tough as that day was, I would do it again and again. Probably my favorite episode that I got to play, there was a character called the Aggressor, and it was going to be a superhero gone bad. And it was actually the only character that I ever played where you could actually see my face. It was so much fun because every time I showed up, I just destroyed everything. I just started trashing the house, the rooms, throwing people around and having a lot of fun. Who doesn't want to play an evil superhero?
Uh-oh.
And there's a couple other characters. We did a couple ghost characters. There was one girl that came in and I just did a gaunting makeup on her, and it was very subtle, but because it was so subtle in the way they shot her and they made her transparent again, that it was really creepy because it wasn't over the top. It was really kind of real and what you would expect if you actually saw a ghost. So sometimes the subtler stuff is actually as impacting as the bigger stuff. Depending on what the character is and kind of where you take it.
Ouch. Well, that really stings.
The idea was that half of him was the demon and the other half was his other human self.
Hot side.
Throughout the show, we had one lens in one eye too, so it was really kind of splitting his character down the middle. And they really wanted him to kind of have a lizardy guy kind of a face. So when we created the appliance, we gave him kind of a lizard slit eye look to go with the green face that he wore. So, and it kind of made it so that it looked like it was a kind of a diseasing demon, so that the flesh on this side would kind of blend in and kind of crawl into that side.
That art form of taking an idea that's written on the page, creating a demon image, giving me a makeup that with the modeling of the green coming down to the reptilian face, and then with the eye, shows the disparity and the inner conflict of the character. I think demons are the side of people that they repress because you just can't be walking around slapping people in the face with an axe just because you're angry.
And it gives a visual tag to the dark side of humanity. So for his character, because he was torn between the demon side and the human side, that's why having the half face this way and the real face this way kind of lend itself to that character. I think the fascination too is that when you get into a fantasy world and you're creating a look of something that doesn't truly exist, there's certain iconic things that people will naturally just react to. So to be able to create a look and then have an actor like Zach bring life to a visual, it just brings the whole package together and it really kind of sells the overall character.
In that case, I guess I'll just have to kill her. Didn't see that coming, did you?
No, I was impressed so many times by so many of the ways the demons rendered themselves. Whether it was an actor, I mean, again, Billy Drago was amazing. David Carradine was great. I'd be amazed by what Todd Tucker could do. He'd give a demon 2 heads and it would work. So there wasn't one moment where I went, that's amazing. It was a never-ending series of moments, whether it was the actors, whether it was the casting, whether it was the makeup, whether it was the visual effects. It was constantly a concern of mine, but we always swung for the fences. And I think that's one of the reasons why the show remained fresh over the course of the years, is because we kept pushing and everybody behind the scenes kept coming through.
We dug deep into the bag of tricks on every episode.
We're the dreaded visual effects guys.
We were little mad scientists on that show.
The trick is first figuring out which is going to be a practical effect, which is going to be a visual effect. And once that decision is made, and that's made by the second day, then it's up to the various teams to come up with a solution on how to physically do it all.
Every show had its own problems, and we had to overcome them. But right from the very beginning, we were looking at featurist type of effects to do, and then trying to figure out a way to do them in a TV budget, in a TV manner. So right from the very first script, it was tough.
For me, the joy of Charmed was getting a new script and seeing what the writers would come up with. Because, as each episode go by, as we, rose to the challenge, it would inspire the writers to raise the bar a little bit more and a little bit more. And we'd get a script and, 2 weeks later we were shooting it.
When you were about to finish the episode, then you knew, okay, now we have to do the special effects stuff. So there was that anticipation. As you walked from the dressing room to go to one of the sets where you were shooting, you would see people would be there working and building the special effects set and setting stuff up, and you would say, okay, we're getting closer, we're getting closer. You knew that was going to be the conclusion of every episode, was they were going to do whatever special effects they had, the bulk of them that they hadn't been able to get to. And so it just became one big, exciting thing to do that started from the first day you got there and just build, till finally you could.
It would be so sad if your sisters weren't here to help you through all this.
Billy played a really cool demon, and the writers wanted him to catch on fire. And so Billy looked at me and said, are we going to do this visually? I said, well, what do you think, Billy? Let's butter up your arm here, and we'll start with a little patch. Next thing I knew, we were buttering up his whole arm, lighting him on fire. And there's Billy Drago, no stunt guy, and he's fully ablaze, and pulled it off just fine. I mean, he's really a great guy.
The biggest challenges were we were doing visual effects in those first couple episodes that I don't think had been done yet on television. There was a freezing episode in the kitchen in episode 2 that took us a while to figure out how to do, but we did it. And I think those were the biggest challenges. We're selling the effects so that people would think, yes, these are really witches and this is really happening, and we were able to do it. And to do it in a way that so the stuff didn't look cheesy and it was believable.
All these gags had been done before, up until Charmed. And then we were mixing mediums. We were mixing practical effects with visual effects. And I think that's another reason why Charmed was so successful, is we had my practical effects on one end, but we had the magic of Steve Lebed. And when you blend the two, like we did on Charmed as well as we did, we were able to get some really neat footage and some really neat gags.
As soon as I was told that we were going to have a dragon in the episode, I just wanted to do it. To be able to do a dragon was just like, oh my God, this is great, you know? How many chances we have to do something like that? The director was John Kretschmer. He understood visual effects, and he understood what it took to incorporate a dragon into the shots that he wanted to do, and he's very creative about how he wants to play the dragon in these shots.
One of the initial appearances of the dragon is outside of when Wyatt's in the playpen, and we had to somehow sell the fact that he conjured this dragon from a television show he was watching. And it was a huge challenge for Labette and his team, because there's nothing harder for a CGI person to do than to animate a creature from scratch, especially in television. On television schedule, it's almost impossible.
And so we'd storyboard all the specific shots, all the specific actions for the dragon. And then I spent the next couple of weeks doing designs, drawing sketches. Then it was a process of going through and building that model in the computer and texturing it and painting it, eventually rigging it for animation. That was a really good mix between special effects and visual effects in that episode, because at one point we were on location in Griffith Park.
I had a car coming through the tunnel with a bomb in the trunk. So the stunt driver in the car was to set the bomb off at the right time. And as the car came through the tunnel, the trunk of the car blows off, the car catches on fire, pitches sideways. At the same time, I've got 2 huge propane cannons going off to represent the flames that this dragon is supposed to be going off. It was huge. The fireball was huge.
I think she's talking about that.
And at the end, we had to take all that footage and incorporate our dragon into that footage so it looks like it's emerging out of the flames, out of the smoke. It was one of the most fun episodes I had to work on.
We did this one episode, Saving Private Leo, in the parking lot in Canoga Park, where you could look over and see the mall where people were shopping. And we were doing fireballs, 40-foot fireballs in the air, blowing up boats and, machine gun fire. And while all this is going on, I'm just wondering, wow, I wonder what those shoppers are thinking while they're looking at this parking lot over here and all this mayhem is going on. Robin Royce, our set decorator, he actually got this 1947 Chris Craft boat. It was huge. We dropped it in the parking lot, painted it gray, put numbers on it. I took water pipe and then welded film cans, because we couldn't afford anti-aircraft weapons, mounted it on this boat, dumped in tons of sand, put in palm trees, and in 4 hours we shot Guadalcanal. With the magic of Stephen Labette and his visual effects crew, we had zeros flying over, he put in all the background. It was just amazing that we were able to pull that off. On a weekly basis, we were pulling the rabbit out of a hat. There wasn't anything that we got from Brad Kern's office that we never sat down and said, geez, I don't think we can do that. And I think they were deliberately trying to write things that they would think that we couldn't do. And I'd say, well, you know what, I think we can do that one. And people look at you like, you're out of your mind. I'd say, no, we can do this.
The biggest effect Randy did was we blew up the second floor of the house on stage, and it was a huge explosion. I mean, there was cork and wood and glass just flying through the air. It was a very dangerous effect, and it was spectacular. That was amazing.
As the time went on, I think we got increasingly better about knowing what production could handle and what they couldn't handle. And so as we were crafting stories in the writer's room, we would be aware of, what they could shoot and what they couldn't shoot. And, we'd push them to their limits, I think, and they would probably say that we pushed them beyond their limits.
The wildest script was I Dream of Phoebe. It involved a magic carpet and a genie.
Thank you for responding to my letter.
In that script, there was one line toward the end of the script that basically said,
I wish to resurrect the lost city of Zanbar.
and I just had to reread that line over and over again because I couldn't believe they actually wrote a line in the script that said this whole city was supposed to rise up from the sands. There's only so many ways you can accomplish something like that. We designed a city. We did drawings of what the city would look like with buildings and different structures and created a small city map. We went ahead and built 3D models and basically tried to animate a city rising up from the sand.
Doing the wire work for me was actually a lot of fun. It was time-consuming, but the effect is always so great. When you see people actually flying through the air rather than CGI creatures flying through the air, people are actually flying through the air. Wire work at the time was kind of new for television. It had come from Hong Kong, so it was a learning curve for everyone involved.
Randy Cabral and his guys who were responsible for coming up with all the ways of making Bruce Powers work. Anytime you could do it for real, it's always going to be better. And so they would rig different props on wires, or we would figure out ways of shooting things in reverse. And if there was wires involved and things like that, and we saw those wires, then we would go through and paint out the wires and do whatever it took to sustain the illusion.
You can take some of the stuff that we do and mix it with Steven's visual effects and morph some of that image. It really creates some really cool stuff.
And from a visual effects standpoint, it got harder, or let me say more complex, much more complex. I look at the number of effects we had in the first episode, which were, I think, maybe 25 or so, and then I look at something like Blair Witch, which had, I think, over 90 effects in it. As the seasons progressed, certain effects became easier and easier. Orbing became very easy.
How did I get here?
We found things that we didn't need to focus on, but it became more important to come up with more efficient ways to kill these guys.
Finally, by the last season, we were doing some really radical stuff. We were doing some stuff that was just above feature work. Every day was a special day on Charmed. Every episode had its own, demons or gremlins that you had to deal with on a daily basis. And then just putting it all together with stunts and effects, which was fantastic.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, well, you're not truly one of us until you've dated a demon.
It's the oldest story in the world. Girl meets demon, girl falls in love with demon, girl breaks up with demon, girl gets back together with demon.
I loved so many of their boyfriends, and I always felt so bad for the girls that they couldn't ever really find love throughout 8 years, and then they finally did.
I'll call you.
I will answer.
Yes. Tell them I'm getting closer.
Julian is so sexy and so dynamic and so sort of powerful and so evil when he's evil and so good when he's good.
He was so conflicted in being part human, part demon, and he was such an interesting character in his relationship with Phoebe.
I know who you were, who you used to be, and that's not the person you are anymore.
Aren't I? Balthazar still exists inside of me. That hasn't changed, nor does it change what I've done.
But just think of all the good you've done since then.
You see why he was Phoebe's true love. You see why, but you also see that bad side of him that like, it could never work out.
I think that women loved the storyline so much because they could relate to falling for the bad guy.
The impossible love that you just can't quite make work, but you want to make work, that was something that always touched me.
Phoebe, we tried it up there. It doesn't work for us.
So where does that leave us?
The minute they were on screen together, you sensed the chemistry between them. They had a natural chemistry that translated well, and that's the key to any great relationship.
It was so thrilling to be able to get him back for the 150th. And there was a moment in that episode where he walks by and she senses him, even though she can't see him. And it's that sort of eternal love.
Oh my God. Let me call you back.
Jason!
Jason Dean came in and he was Phoebe's boss, and he had all sorts of visions about changing the newspaper around. He was a real go-getter.
And I just thought he was such a great match for Phoebe, and I think all of the writers wanted them to get married. We just thought I mean, here is the guy that, like, he's big, he's handsome, he's smart, he has his own career, he shouldn't be threatened. I love the moment where he finds out that Phoebe's a witch and he just passes out. This big strapping guy just passes out.
I mean, wouldn't you faint if you found out your significant other was a witch?
He was not for her, not just because he couldn't handle her magic, but because he had a life of his own.
That scene when they say goodbye in the rain, you just felt that pain and you felt so sad for them.
It's a scene that I felt absolutely privileged to be part of, not because of anything I did, but because of what they did and the emotion they put behind it.
Eric and I had actually broken up in real life because I dated him for a little bit. And so I was able to tap into like a legitimate thing as an actress and sort of pull up this memory of when Eric and I broke up and allowed that moment to transpire within the scene.
Hey,
Richard, what are you doing here?
I came to apologize.
We like the idea of there being a magicaholic in the sisters' lives, someone who showed the bad side of magic and what could happen if you used too much of it and you basically couldn't stop.
What would make me really happy is if you just stopped with all the